Now this little fit is really nice to do this with right here. You just put it underneath of your glass just a little tiny bit and take your 2 index fingers and push down just like that. And that's a great little way for you to break your glass. And just set it right there and push down. I'm gonna bring this over. And if you're doing a lot of copper foil, and you know when you get to that end and it's right there, you just, look at that.
That's sharp.
These things are sharp as the day is long, and they're very convenient. I mean, you can put your thumb inside of them if you want, but it seems to me like the way they made the front and the bottom here, because the bottom edge is flat, see that? The bottom edge is flat. They made it so that you can hold this just like this. And you can just clip that edge of your foil, boom, roll it right over. And this is a great little tool. It's probably less than $5 or $6. And it's a great tool for your new, for your tool arsenal. I mean, it just seems so simple. The blades are attached with Phillips head screws. You can see that yourself. They give you a little sleeve. Put that right over top of that, just like that. Very simple. And this keeps you from poking yourself. And you're gonna really enjoy these, those of you that do a lot of copper foil. Yeah, so I brought my personal glass cutter home tonight. We all recognize this. This is the one that works like a dog here. And you can see, I just noticed this the other day, that I've been using this for so long that I'm actually getting a split right up the brass handle here. And that's just been around for a while. But the reason, those of you that have never seen this cutter before, the reason this is here is this is where I rest my index finger, right on top of that little bit of solder right there. So you can modify your glass cutter very simply by using some copper foil, making sure the brass is very clean, copper foil it, and then a little bit of solder. And 50-50 you'll be fine, or 60-40, whatever you choose to use. But I had somebody come in the shop today, and they were very confused about whether you go straight or push. And I've seen people push their glass cutter for straight lines, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I've seen people pull their glass cutters for cutting patterns. But what I've found over the years personally, myself, y'all, is that when you're cutting a straight line, if you pull it towards you, I'm getting my square out. And if you don't have one of these, you really need one of these too for your tool arsenal, because nobody can cut a straight line, okay? But what you want to do is, so this is me cutting a straight line. I'm pulling the glass cutter towards me, and now I'm going to take my running pliers, and these are my leponettes right here. Make sure, remember guys, so we don't get flares, make sure that the line in the center of your running pliers is always lined up with the center of your score. And now you'll see that piece of glass is narrower on the bottom than it is at the top. But guess what? When we go back up here and we put our square here, our piece of glass is now square. Look at that. It's now square. Perfect. So we want to do that. Now if I'm cutting what I call a pattern, okay, if I'm cutting a pattern, and we'll just draw that and see how well I can follow a line. So when you're cutting the pattern, this is the piece of glass that I want. And I just took my pattern off. I've traced my pattern out to the glass. And now I'm going to just make sure that everything's in the camera. So for two reasons. Number one, that you can see it. And I'm going to depress the head. See that? I'm depressing the head, and now I have started my score. I got a little bit of a glare here over top of this from the light above my head, but I think I can make it work. So we're just going to continue. Remember, when you go in a pothole, just continue to drive straight out of that. And as I always do, I start my run from the hot end, or the end that I finished on, with my score. So we're going to start our run. And you heard that crack. Now that run probably ran down to about right here. It looks like that's exactly what happened. So now I'm going to turn this back around, and I'm going to come in it at the other direction. And I'm just going on so that my pliers that only the rubber is touching the glass. I'm not going way deep or anything. We're going to start this run. Here we go. So there's my other run that has started. I'm going to take my grousing pliers, and I'm going to come in behind the run. Now remember, your grousing pliers have a curved jaw and a straight jaw. The straight jaw goes on top. The curved jaw is for grousing or eliminating burrs and nubs and everything else. So I want to get in behind my score, or behind my run with my grousers. I've got my knuckle placed underneath. You see that fall? I'm just holding the glass. So I've got my knuckle placed right up against my pliers, and I'm going to pull down.
Whoa.
Now, no, that's fine, because I wanted them to see that. So when I pulled down on my pliers, I'm pulling down on this, but what it did is it ran to its weakest point, because when I asked it to go around that curve right there, it wasn't going to go. What I needed to do was just start my run a little bit further and then get up in here with it and get behind it. So now I've already started this run here, and we're going to come in behind that, and then this should drop off. Now, everybody says, well, what do you use those grousers for? I'll show you what I'm going to use this grousing plier for. You see that right there? That flare right there. We're going to take that, and we're going to put our grousing pliers a little bit over top of it, and we're going to go just like that. And what that did is that took it off, took that little burr right off of that piece of glass that we needed. And now we're just going to do that one more time. I'm going to push this away just like that. And we're going to do this one more time. This is a really nice glass to work with. And now we're going to run it back the other direction. Now this should complete the run. Just should go ahead and run it down. Yeah, it did. So it took that and ran it right down. So if you'll push your scores for patterns, pull your scores like this for straight lines, just like this. And remember, the only pressure you need is to depress the head on your glass cutter. Because if you're pushing too hard, you won't get an edge like that right there. Okay? Mm-hmm. That's nice and smooth. Just if you're pushing too hard, this is what it'll look like. And this is what it'll sound like too. This is just way too hard, way too hard. So now I'm going to show you what that edge looks like. It should look like a sharks have been chewing on it. And you can see it. You can see the depth of it right there. See it? See that? That's from pushing. If the edge or the side of your glass looks like that, guys, you're pushing too hard on your glass cutter. Okay? I have a lot of questions too that come up that say, well, I can't hear my score when I'm cutting my glass. Well, it all depends on your glass. It doesn't depend on, it's not your cutter. It's the glass, the density of the glass. So let's try this. I'm going to depress my head. You can hear it. And all that is my wheel rolling on that glass, y'all. And the other thing is you're gonna, and you can see I wasn't pushing too hard. See that? Look at the difference. Look at that side, that edge on that glass. All I'm doing is depressing the head on my glass cutter to make sure, and we're gonna put a mark here for this one because I'm not gonna know where it's gonna go because I won't be able to see it. Just like that. So we're going to put a mark where I came off so that I can turn this around. And we're just going to stop that right there, and we're going to squeeze and pull. So we went mark to mark, right down the middle, just like we were supposed to. But again, guys, just because you can't hear your score doesn't mean you have to push harder. And just because your glass has a texture on it, on one side that's heavy and light on the other, still, again, it doesn't mean that you have to push harder on the glass, on your glass cutter. What you want to do is just depress the head, and you want to run it from one end to the other with your pattern, and that glass will continue to break correctly for you as long as you just take your time, don't get in a hurry with it. And you don't need to rush with your scores because the glass will be there when after it's broken and done everything else, the glass is still going to be there. So keep that in mind. Make sure you depress the head, which is about 8 pounds of pressure on your glass cutter. When you depress that head right there like that, that's it. Just depress your head, and that's all the pressure that you need. And we're going to cut a pattern just like that. Now remember, I've got a really steep curve here, so I can't go too crazy, because that's all my running pliers would allow me to do, is that run right there. Oh, and you can see that pretty good. Now I'm going to come back to the other end, and we're going to go back to it. And now what we're going to do, I mean, I can use my grousing pliers, but I'm going to use both of my index fingers, and I'm going to try and chase that run. There we go. I'm going to chase that run just a little bit further. There it goes. See it? Just chased it right around there. Now I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to force this run to go that way by using my index finger underneath and pulling down with my thumb. But I want to make sure that I get behind that run. Here we go. So I'm using my index finger underneath of the score and behind the run, and my thumb on top. And I'm just gonna pull it. There it goes. So I just ran it. It's only gonna run a little bit at a time because of the amount of pressure that I'm putting on it. Just like that. There it goes. Okay, so when those two met, did you hear it click? So in order for me to get this out of here, we're going to double check with our running pliers, just like this. And now I should be able to take my running pliers. Okay, so normally we would use them like this, but I'm going to take them and turn them upside down, and we should hear another pop. And then that comes right out. Let's just do the same thing right here. I'm using my Silversnip 4000. So sometimes you can run, and I don't know if this will lock in or not. It may or may not. Okay, so I've got my run. You can see it. It started right to there. Ideally, I can run these back to each other, and it won't come out. And so what you can do if this is too wide for you to get your fingers underneath, turn it upside down, get behind your run and take your finger and push it. Now you see that? I'm pulling this apart, y'all. You see that? I'm pulling it apart and it's still locked in. I've turned my glass over and it's still not coming out, okay? So I turn my glass back up, right side up, but I'm turning my running pliers over, and here we go. And it comes right out. So it did do what I wanted it to do to show you guys, was the fact that you can take your glass and you can turn it over and you can run it with your fingers if that's how you need to do it. What you have to make sure of is that you have a solid surface to work off of, because if you have a goofy surface or an indentation in your surface, it will cause the glass to break incorrectly. So